So next up here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center, let me refer back to, we have a actor, director, and playwright, local contributor to our theater community, who is going to be presenting a really poignant original piece this weekend at the PVD Fest. Help me welcome Frank Toti.
Hello.
Hi, Frank, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Get nice and close and cozy.
Thank you very much.
I'm just getting all my friends on the show today.
Well, that's awesome.
It is. Okay, Frank, so this show that you are presenting this weekend, it's called Trans.
Yes.
And this is what we are, it's an oral history play, which is a little different than just a regular play with conversation and so forth. So talk to us a little bit about how this play was written and how you sort of...
Oh, absolutely. Because I know your previous guest, Joe Wilson, was chatting about how at Trinity they're trying to expand the number of voices that are represented on stage, and that's really a large part of what oral history theater is about, is allowing men and women and different communities or different historical experiences that may not have been covered, that may be sort of overlooked, to finally have a chance to share their voice. So basically with oral history plays, we go out and we decide first. So basically the work that I do is through or in conjunction with the University of Rhode Island here, their Providence campus, their Urban Arts and Culture program, which has as its mission...
Right down the street.
Right down the street, and their mission is to, one, explore issues of social justice, and also to celebrate cultural diversity. So trans falls within both of those. And so in terms of oral history, I'll use this play as an example. We went out, or Stephen did himself, and interviewed, this is actually the second version of the play. We did the first version 2 years ago at the Providence Fringe Festival.
Right.
And that was based on about 10 to 12 interviews that had been done at that point.
And they're interviews with real members
Yes,
of the transgender
absolutely.
community here. I don't think I explained that very well.
And I was getting there, yeah, so I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that. Yeah, so these are real people who are sharing their real life stories.
Right.
And we're interviewing them, their stories are taken down on a recorder.
Mm-hmm.
And then generally, this is the fifth one that I've collaborated with them on, that I've written for to be produced at URI. And so in some of the past ones, I've been the principal interviewer. In this one here, Stephen Pennell, who's the director of the Arts and Culture program, did all of the interviews. And so then the process is, generally for an oral history play, is that I will sit down and I will listen to all the transcripts orally, because they're recorded for us, and then, or if they've been transcribed, I'll read the transcription. And what I look for, because first and foremost, I'm always looking we want to honor the people who have shared their stories, because they really have opened up their hearts. They're being very vulnerable about, this is my life.
Mm-hmm. Their personal experience is going to be now presented in front of an audience, so you do have to sort of be delicate with their stories and their words.
Absolutely.
I
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah. And so usually when I write one of these oral history plays, I have in mind, yes, I want to speak to the wider audience, and certainly for this play we do want to reach not only the transgender community, to let them know, hi, we're celebrating you, honoring you, but also to provide a great deal of, if you will, sort of information, or even to increase people's awareness about the transgender community and the challenges that transgender men and transgender women face in their day-to-day lives. So to go back to the process, so what I look for is I want to celebrate, and that's why we try to acquire as many interviews as possible. So we're now up to 25.
Wow.
And so this play is based on those 25 interviews. And so I look for the uniqueness of the stories that's being shared by the individual. But then I also look for, what is the common thread? Right? What are some of the common themes? What are some of the common experiences that may link these lives? And now, one of the things I do want to share is that, unlike, let's say, a play that's written whole cloth out of someone's imagination, I don't do that. I mean, I use, in the writing of the play, when you go hear it, when you go see it, it's their words. So I don't change their words. I actually use what they have shared. Now, where I come in as a playwright is that I am now listening to 15, 20, 25 separate interviews that were conducted individually. And now my job, so to speak, as a playwright, is how do I take 25 different interviews and fashion it so that it sounds like one conversation, so
One
that
through line
one through line,
of a
one
story, yeah.
arc of a story, of dialogue. So that's where I guess my challenge and creativity sort of enters in. So I get to, and so that's why the through line is important, or the arc. And so in this case, we normally in the past I always try to take the interviewer out of the plays. This is the first, the fifth oral history play that I've written,
Right.
in collaboration with URI. This is the first time that I've chosen not to take the interviewer out of the process or the play itself, because I didn't want to hide the fact that these were interviews. And so what we've done here is there are 6 people, 3 trans men and 3 trans women, who are being portrayed on stage. We actually have 2 trans actors.
Awesome.
So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
And so, my hope is that when we're going to plan on doing this, the final version, if you will, of trans will be in the fall. We hope to have some more interviews, and I would love for the entire cast to be actually trans actors.
Yeah.
So, so what we have here is we have the interviewer, who actually is Stephen Pennell, so he's actually portraying himself, if you will, on
Great,
stage.
yeah.
And then we have 6 actors, one of whom is your mom.
Amazingly talented Carol Schlink,
Absolutely.
a.k.a.
And
Ava's mom.
We feel very, very privileged to have your mom. She's just so gifted. And
I think so
and she's portraying a lovely character named Tiffany.
So this is a real hot topic right now, I think. I think gender identity issues is being brought to the forefront now, sort of in our culture. And, I think a lot of people want to understand. I think a lot of people want to be inclusive. We want to know how to use the right pronouns.
Correct.
Those
Absolutely.
kinds of things. And I think a lot of people are still kind of unsure and afraid of how to approach it. What did you learn in the process of listening to these interviews and writing this about that approach?
Well, it's about, and you've sort of hit on all of that, and that's the reason why we're doing the plays, for the reasons that you just shared, to increase people's awareness, to increase their comfortableness
Right.
in, if they meet someone who's transgender, to be able to speak to them. They're real people.
Right.
So but it's finding that level of awareness and comfortableness, so you don't feel like, oh, I'm going to say the wrong thing. It's just, people are people. And so one of the things I've learned is that the struggles that they go through, again, while the underlying issue may be different than, mine or yours, but the struggle is the same. And so I think that's one of the things I hope the wider audience relates to, is that we all struggle. It's just that it's in a different way. And that, again, being aware of the specific challenges and how we as a greater community can help. So I think that's, again, what part of the my intention behind writing this play is to, again, theater can entertain and it can inform, and so this does both. But also, one of the additional aspects of oral history plays really is as I said, the honoring of the people whose stories we share, because they really are opening up their hearts.
Right.
And they are being very vulnerable, and we want to make sure that we respect their stories, we honor their stories.
I noticed that the title of the show is Trans, but with an asterisk. Is there a reason for this?
Well, that was actually how trans is identified as a term. I had wanted to actually change the title to Trans Views. So I think maybe for the fall that will be the new title for the play, because again, trying to integrate the idea that the men and women are transgender, and that these are based on interviews. So again, as I said, we're not hiding the fact that these are interviews. And so I think that works to, the strength of the play, because the overarching arc, we're telling a story from A to Z, but we're actually only getting, different letters from different people, if that makes sense. So so we might get actually everybody's ABC, but then we'll jump, character A may take us, we might hear like DKLQ from them, but then someone else will give us RXT, right? So I know the letters didn't match up, but I think you get the idea that, so we're getting
Sure.
snippets of everybody's life,
Right.
but then collectively we get the arc of their lives.
Were there any, without any spoilers, because I want people to be able to go to this performance and really enjoy it, so don't give anything away.
Okay.
That's too important. But were there any recurring themes in these interviews that seemed like these are kind of touching upon the real issues that these people are going through?
There are several. First and foremost is that whole process of acknowledgement and recognition and acceptance that they are transgender.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak to some extent. While I can't completely put myself or understand their experience, but it was, being a gay male, and this is where I was talking about, so even though the stories are individual, the experience is shared, I understand what it's like when you're coming to understand who you are and it's not who everybody else is.
Right.
And so you feel that you're alone, you feel that you're the only one.
Mm.
And so there is a sense, because we actually, here in the play, the three women are older,
Mm-hmm.
so they came to an awareness of their transgender nature later in life, as opposed to the three trans men who actually are younger in age. I think the oldest might be now late 20s, early 30s. So again, there's a generational divide or separation, which is very interesting. So we get a sense of what was it like for older people to transition, and how in some ways it is easier, but yet still challenging for younger trans male and trans women. So part of it is, what is the nature of that struggle? The fact that there's a great deal of self-doubt, there's a great deal of both dysphoria, as they say, and transphobia, both, internally, sort of, the society is telling you that you are strange,
Right.
that you're, and I know this was used for, the gay community, you're unnatural, that it's, so partly coming to overcome those negative images that society is presenting. Also combating some things that are ingrained in human society, this idea of the gender binary, right? So for transgender people, it's fighting against that you're either male or you're female.
Right.
And that you have to fit into one category or the other.
People are so ingrained to put things in categories and put things in boxes. It's almost like it's very hard for people, I imagine, to just sort of break out of that structure
Exactly.
that exists in society and has for so long.
So that's one of the sort of aspects of the story that's shared, is how do you exist, let's say in a more fluid spectrum. The fact that because of the repression, if you will, or the lack of acceptance or openness among society, leads a number of, sadly, particularly among transgender youth or youth coming to terms, there is a high rate of suicide or attempted suicide. And so that's one of the heartbreaking issues that is addressed in the play. And then the amazing surprises of family and friends and strangers who are just totally accepting and opening. There's a wonderful story, which again, it's told by Tiffany about a friend of hers. So maybe this is a little bit of a spoiler.
Ooh, little spoiler.
But,
Spoiler alert, guys.
But the story is just so beautiful because it's a friend of hers who knew that she was transgender and actually went out with her one New Year's Eve. They actually went to, I believe it was the Dark Lady. And so they're having a great time. The gentleman was straight. He's like, well, why do I want to go to a gay bar? There aren't going to be any straight women there. She said, oh, you'd be surprised, right? Because it's a safe space for straight women to go to a gay bar. So they're there. Yeah, exactly. Just have fun and not have to worry.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're there that night. They both get very drunk. And Tiffany's friend says to Tiffany, I love hanging out with Tiffany. But Tom is an asshole. Oh, I don't know if I'm sorry if I don't know if I can say that. Then we have to be bleeped. But Tom is a hoe. And Tiffany's like, but you know that I'm the same person, right? And he's like, no, you're not. And that was sort of, and that's when Tiffany decided that, yes, it's time for me to fully transition. Because, yeah, I'm not.
It's almost
the same.
like two separate lives.
Exactly. So Tiffany's friend saw her real self.
Right.
And loved her real self. And so now Tiffany was like, okay, I can fully embrace my real self now.
Right.
So that's really just, that's all that we all want, right? To be able to embrace our real selves. And so
Right.
I think that's ultimately what the message of trans is, of how people are able to, right, become their real selves.
Well, I think it sounds wonderful. I can't wait to see it.
So just a few little, so it's this
June 1st and 2nd.
Right, this Thursday and Friday night at URI Providence campus here at 80 Washington Street. The performances start at 7:30.
Okay.
They're free, they're open to the public. And after the performance, part of the reason that we chose to do, not to hide the fact that they were interviews, is because at the end of the play, we are having a moderated discussion. And Stephen had wanted to make sure that the play was open-ended so that if there were any people in the audience who wanted to share their stories in the moment, could. So that was why we arranged so that, so that we're not hiding that it's an interview, so people may feel comfortable actually sharing. So again, it's 7:30 on Thursday and Friday night here in Providence.
It'll be at the URI.
Providence, downtown Providence campus at 80 Washington Street. Again, free, open to the public, and it's running now maybe a little bit over an hour.
Okay.
And then it said we're looking for audience feedback. So just as we had feedback from the first show in 2 years ago, which then helped the development for this version, we're hoping to receive additional feedback, maybe some more additional interviews, and then that would allow me to then construct a new version for November. So we're hoping to do then a fully staged play in November.
This version is
a staged reading,
and
so
not a fully sort of with sets and props and those kinds of
Well,
things.
we have some of that. So we do have a limited set, not with all the bells and whistles, but we are trying to create a little environment for each character. So this way, people realize, these are separate interviews, but yet we're telling sort of one story. But yes, the actors will have script in hand, but we're trying to make it as active as possible.
Do you know if any of the real subjects plan on coming to see it?
Well, Stephen has contacted all of the people who've been interviewed, and particularly the men and women who were interviewed for the play. So I know one of them is actually out of state, and we are taping it, so we'll be sending Josie a copy of it. I haven't heard back yet, but I'm hopeful that all of the men and women that we interviewed will be there. And and that's part of the beauty of oral history work, is that many times you actually are able to present the play to the persons who shared their stories, and that's where it goes back to the idea of honor and trust, and that when I write an oral history play, it's really for those people who share their stories. I'm writing for them.
Yeah.
It's like I want everyone who comes to enjoy the play, to find something meaningful in it for them, but it's really I want
they're opening up their heart and their true experience, which I'm sure is painful sometimes, or
yes, it is.
Maybe embarrassing, and yet they're gracious enough to
and
offer
courageous.
that to you. Yeah.
And so that's why when I write for them, and that's the first thing I do at the end of the play. I go up to whoever it is, and I was like, "So did you like the play?
Yeah.
Are you happy?" And so that's, if you will, my reward when I know that I've honored them.
Oh, that's awesome, and I can't wait to go see it. I will definitely see you. I'm not sure which night, but I'll be there.
Okay.
So,
well, thank you so much for this time here to be able to share with your audience and people here in Providence. It's these lives, these stories are so important, and they need to be shared. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. So this Thursday and Friday, 7:30 at the URI campus here in downtown Providence for the PVD Fest. Quick selfie.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
You're the best.
Great, you are.
Have a great show.